Dragon King Lucan Aereth burned Verena Hollis's life's work in front of every noble buyer at the Redscale Royal Exchange. He did not raise his voice. That made it worse. The black leather cover of the Living Scar Register lay open on the judgment stand, its brass clasps shaped like folded dragon wings. The Living Scar Register did not own a dragon's pain. It indexed it. Once a scar was entered with breath, scale dust, and witness ink, the mark could answer its own name, even if paper burned. Verena stood beneath the auction banners with ash on her sleeves, her grey work dress still smelling faintly of salve, smoke, and frightened dragon breath. Around her, the wealthiest houses in the kingdom watched as if a woman's ruin were only another item for bidding. Auction Regent Tiber Vossen held the register with gloved hands. "Your Majesty, this document accuses 12 noble houses of purchasing stolen dragons." Verena lifted her chin. "It records scars. It implies criminality. It preserves identity." Tiber gave the crowd a sorrowful smile. "You see, she mistakes obsession for service." A buyer's ring clicked once against his bidding paddle. Lucan's eyes remained on the register. Gold dragon fire moved under his skin, bright at his throat and wrists, the old royal flame every dragon in the yard had been bred to obey. He had admired her once for refusing to forget an injured creature. She knew that. She remembered the night he found her sleeping beside a burned fledgling because the dragon would not breathe unless her hand stayed near its ribs. But admiration was a private thing. Today, reputation was public. "Verena Hollis," Lucan said, "your concern for injured dragons has served this court." Her heart tightened at the softness of served. Served meant past tense. Tiber lowered his voice, but not enough to keep the buyers from hearing. "No one doubts her compassion, Majesty. But compassion without restraint becomes defamation." "The scar was not damage in my hand," Verena said. "It was a witness that could not be bribed." The line moved uneasily through the yard. Tiber's smile did not change. "And yet a clean sale certificate must outrank private memory, or no lawful exchange can stand." Verena looked at Lucan. "Every mark in that book belongs to a dragon who survived a chain, a brand, a blade, or a bad owner. If you burn it, those creatures lose the only names their bodies still remember." Lucan's jaw tightened. For one brief second, she thought he heard her. Then he closed the register. "The Royal Exchange cannot proceed under accusation," he said. "Confidence must be preserved." Tiber bowed his head. A painful but necessary ruling. Verena's breath left her slowly. "Necessary for whom?" she asked. Lucan did not answer. That was the moment something in her broke cleanly. Not loudly. Not enough for the court to enjoy. Only enough that she stopped hoping he would choose truth before power. The Dragon King lifted one hand. A ribbon of royal flame curled from his palm and wrapped around the Living Scar Register. "No," Verena said. Her refusal barely crossed the yard. Lucan's fire did. Pages blackened. Ink screamed into smoke. Years of notes curled into nothing. Crescent burn on left hind leg. Double chain groove under throat. Split horn repaired with copper. Old lash line near tail joint. Star-shaped brand hidden under false scale dye. She had written every one so no trafficker could rename a stolen dragon and sell it as new. Lucan watched the pages burn. So did she. When the cover finally collapsed, Tiber turned to the crowd. "The Redscale Royal Exchange remains clean. Let no buyer fear slander from private sentiment." Private sentiment. Verena almost laughed. Her work had been called many things dirty, excessive, unfeminine, inconvenient. No one had ever called it private when they needed her to stop a bleeding dragon from dying before sale. Lucan stepped down from the judgment stand, the burned cover still in his hand. His gaze found hers. There was conflict there. She hated him for letting her see it. "Verena," he said quietly, "do not make me remove you from the yard." She looked at the ash drifting from his fingers. "You already removed me. You only left my body standing here." His eyes darkened. Tiber moved between them before the silence could become dangerous. "The first lot is ready, Majesty." Chains rattled at the far gate. A young red-grey dragon was led into the auction circle, head low, wings bound in ceremonial gold cord. The handler announced it as a fresh mountain capture, untouched by prior ownership, ideal for flame training and breeding. Verena's stomach turned. She knew that dragon. Not by name first, by wound. Beneath the false polish on its flank lay a narrow scar that curved like a broken crescent near the left hind leg. She had recorded it 2 winters ago on a rescue called Marrowlight, stolen from a widow's quarry road and never recovered. Tiber raised his voice. "Opening bid begins at 5,000 ember crowns." Verena stepped forward. "That dragon has been sold before." The crowd hissed. Tiber sighed as if wounded by her persistence. "Majesty." Lucan's voice hardened. "Verena." She did not look away from the chained dragon. "He had a crescent scar under the die. I wrote it down before your fire ate the page." Tiber smiled sadly. "The page no longer exists." The first bid rang out. Then the dragon screamed. Not in pain, in scar memory. A red-white light burst through the false polish on its flank. The crescent scar ignited beneath the skin, bright as living script. The chain handlers stumbled back. The dragon's bound wings trembled, and a second light appeared near its throat. 2 parallel grooves, exactly where Verena had once written chain pressure, iron, healed badly. The marks did not turn toward Verena. They answered the shape that had once been entered in breath, scale dust, and witness ink. The auction yard fell silent. The burned cover in Lucan's hand cracked. A line of ash lifted from it, twisting through the air like a page remembering its own index. Verena stared as the glowing scars formed 3 words along the dragon's side. Marrowlight. Sold twice. Tiber's smile vanished. Lucan looked from the dragon to Verena, and for the first time that morning, the Dragon King's voice lost its throne. "What did I burn?" Living scar response. Marrowlight's scars identified him as a previously sold dragon, not a fresh mountain capture. Tiber Vossen did not deny that the first auction lot was Marrowlight. He denied that glowing scars could outrank a clean sale certificate. The red-grey dragon stood trembling in the auction circle, wings bound, false polish cracking where the crescent scar burned through its flank. Marrowlight, sold twice. The words glowed along the creature's side as if the body itself had become a page too stubborn to die. No one bid. No one breathed loudly. Dragon King Lucan Aereth held the burned cover of the living scar register in one hand, ash staining the royal gold at his knuckles. His gaze moved from the glowing scars to Verena Hollis. "What did I burn?" he asked again, quieter this time. Verena looked at him without softening. "Ask the scar before you ask the certificate." Tiber gave a careful laugh, the kind meant to steady rich men. "Majesty, a scar-light reaction is not legal identity." The auction yard accepted the phrase quickly. Legal identity sounded safer than a dragon's body remembering a stolen name. Tiber turned to the buyers. "Scars can be similar. False polish can distort old marks. A frightened creature under public stress may ignite in unpredictable patterns." Verena stepped toward the circle. A handler blocked her with a pole. Lucan's voice cut through the yard. "Lower that." The handler hesitated. "Lower it," Lucan said. The pole dropped. Tiber's eyes flickered once, then calmed. "Your Majesty, caution is wise, but a burned register cannot testify." "No," Verena said. "The paper cannot. The entry can." Lucan looked at her. "What scars did you record?" She did not answer him immediately. That small delay cost him more than anger would have. Once he would have asked her in private, near the rescue pens, his coat smelling of smoke and storm rain. Once she would have handed him the book with trust still warm in her fingers. Today he had to ask in front of the people who had watched him burn it. Verena faced the dragon. Crescent burn on the left hind leg, double chain groove under the throat, Scales split along the lower rib where an iron sailhook tore free. Marrowlight flinches if gold cord crosses his wings because the first buyer bound him too tight during transport. Marrowlight gave a low, shaking sound. The gold cord around his wings went bright at one knot, then snapped. The crowd recoiled. Not attack. Evidence answering pressure. Tiber lifted his hand. A nervous animal may respond to a familiar voice. The marks did not turn toward me, Verena said. They answered the recorded shape. Lucan's jaw tightened. Was Marrowlight entered under witness ink? Verena's eyes moved to the burned cover in his hand. Yes. Who witnessed it? Keeper Knoll at the East Rescue Shed, 2 quarry widows, and a scale wash boy who lost 3 fingers pulling Marrowlight out of a chain trench. A woman near the buyer rail whispered, "I remember that rescue." Tiber turned sharply. Memory from the crowd is not admissible trade proof. Verena looked at him. Then ask why a fresh capture carries old chain grooves. Lucan faced the auction scribe. Bring the sale certificate. The scribe hurried forward with a cream parchment stamped in red wax. His fingers shook as he offered it to the king. Lucan read, "Fresh mountain capture. No prior ownership. No prior sale damage. Certified flame, sound, and breed. Ready." Verena's mouth tightened. "Clean where the body is not." Tiber stepped beside Lucan, close enough to guide the room without appearing to control it. The certificate was issued by licensed inspectors. Mistress Hollis is reconstructing memory under emotional distress. The words struck her like a polite hand over the mouth. Lucan heard it. Good. Let him hear what he had allowed. Was the sale certificate issued before scar inspection? Lucan asked. The auction scribe swallowed. The certificate was prepared before final polish review, Majesty. Who certified him as fresh mountain capture? The scribe looked at Tiber. Tiber smiled without warmth. The exchange office certifies hundreds of lots. Errors in timing do not prove false identity. Verena took one more step toward Marrowlight. Ask whether polish can make a wound forget. Lucan looked at the dragon's flank. Can false scale dye hide a living scar? The scribe's face went pale. Temporarily, Majesty, until heat, fear, or breath entry wakes the mark. The words moved through the yard. Breath entry, witness ink, scale dust. The law Tiber had called private memory suddenly had procedure again. Marrowlight lowered his head. The throat grooves brightened, 2 parallel lines under old red-gray scales. Then the crescent hind scar pulsed once, answering in the same rhythm. Verena whispered, "There is what they covered." Lucan heard her. His face changed not into apology, not yet, but into the first terrible knowledge that he had burned something alive in more than paper. Tiber recovered quickly. A prior rescue name has no sale standing unless the original register survives. Verena turned toward Lucan. Ask whether your fire burned the record or only the court's excuse to ignore it. The burned cover cracked again. A narrow ribbon of ash lifted from the spine, drifted over Marrowlight's flank, and settled across the glowing crescent. For one breath, the air formed handwriting, crescent burn, left hind leg. Then the ash slid to the throat grooves. Double chain pressure, iron, healed badly. The auction scribe dropped the certificate. Lucan did not pick it up. He looked at Verena across the circle, and the old admiration in his eyes finally had to stand beside public shame. Read the scar entry, he ordered. Tiber's voice sharpened. Majesty, that entry no longer exists in lawful paper. Lucan looked at the glowing marks, then read what remains. The scribe stared at the scars, then lowered his head. Scar entry record. Marrowlight's crescent hind scar and throat chain grooves matched Verena Hollis's burned register entry. Tiber Vossen did not deny that Marrowlight's scars matched Verena Hollis's burned register entry. He denied that the sale certificate had concealed those scars. The scar entry record lay in the open air now, written not on paper but across a trembling dragon's body. The crescent hind mark still glowed under cracked false polish. The double grooves beneath Marrowlight's throat pulsed in a slow rhythm, As if old iron had learned to speak without breaking skin, Dragon King Lucan Aereth stood with the burned register cover at his side. He had not apologized. Good. Verena did not want his apology while his fire was still warm on her work. Tiber lifted one gloved hand toward the buyers. Certificates summarize sale condition, Majesty. They do not list every healed blemish on a creature's body. Verena looked at Lucan. Ask why the certificate had room for breeding value but not chain grooves. A few buyers shifted behind their paddles. Tiber smiled thinly. Mistress Hollis is expanding one irregularity into an accusation against the whole exchange. One irregularity, Verena said, is what men call a door before they see who is locked behind it. Lucan's eyes moved to her. Pain crossed his face. Not enough. Bring the certificate back, he ordered. The auction scribe bent quickly and retrieved the cream parchment from the stone floor. His hands shook harder now. Red wax trembled under his thumb. Lucan looked down at the certificate. What does fresh mountain capture require? The scribe swallowed. A lot entered as fresh capture must show no prior sale registration, no active ownership mark, no unresolved claim, and no prior restraint damage that would alter identity value. Tiber inclined his head. Identity value, Majesty, not cosmetic scarring. Verena's mouth tightened. Ask whether fresh means newly caught or newly renamed. Lucan did not look away from the parchment. Does the certificate require prior scar disclosure? Yes, Majesty, the scribe said. If the scar affects identity, sale history, restraint history, or prior handling. Tiber's voice stayed calm. Chain grooves may come from lawful capture restraint. A mountain dragon does not walk into an exchange wearing silk. A low laugh moved through one corner of the buyer rail. Marolite's throat scars brightened. The laugh died. Verena stepped closer to the auction circle. Ask whether an old wound becomes cosmetic when a noble house wants a clean lot. Tiber turned to her with perfect sorrow. You wound the exchange with language like that. No, she said. The exchange wounds dragons and calls my language ugly because it leaves a mark. Lucan's fingers closed around the burned cover. He faced the scribe. Were Marolite's chain grooves inspected before certification? The scribe opened a narrow inspection strip attached behind the certificate. Final inspection was marked complete. That is not what I asked. Silence struck the yard. The scribe lowered his eyes. No, Majesty. The throat grooves were not listed in final inspection. Verena looked at the dragon's bound neck. The sale paper is clean where the body is written. Tiber stepped in quickly. Polish review is cosmetic, Majesty. It prepares lots for display. It is not identity review. Lucan's gaze sharpened. Who approved polish before scar review? The scribe hesitated. Tiber said, display preparation is standard before high-value bidding. No buyer wants a blood-smeared creature dragged raw into a royal circle. Verena's voice went cold. No buyer wants history showing through the shine. The red-white light along Marolite's throat widened, not toward her, not toward Lucan, but toward the certificate strip in the scribe's hand. Evidence answering omission. Lucan saw it. Did the certificate list the crescent hind scar? He asked. No, Majesty. Did it list the throat chain grooves? No, Majesty. Did it list prior restraint damage of any kind? The scribe barely breathed. No. Tiber's jaw tightened once before his court face returned. A clean certificate cannot list every healed blemish. The body of a dragon is not a confession. Verena looked at him. No, but a covered scar is a question. And you have spent all morning teaching the court not to ask it. Lucan turned the certificate toward the flame. Can prior restraint marks be omitted from sale identity? The scribe looked as if he wished the dragon would stop glowing. It did not. No, Majesty. If they match a recorded scar entry, they must be disclosed. Tiber's voice lowered. If the entry survives. The burned cover cracked again. Ash lifted from the brass clasp and drifted toward the certificate. It did not form the whole register. It did not restore Verena's work. It only settled over the blank inspection lines where the crescent hind mark and throat groove should have been written. 2 empty spaces darkened. Crescent hind scar, omitted. Throat chain grooves, omitted. The buyers stared, not at Verena, at the clean certificate that suddenly looked less clean. Lucan's face changed by a degree, but Verena saw it because she had once studied him too closely. Guilt was beginning to find the exact places where pride had been standing. He looked at her. She did not soften. Was the certificate clean because he was clean? She asked. Or because the scars were covered? Lucan repeated the question to the scribe. The scribe's voice broke. Because the scars were not carried forward after polish review, Majesty. Tiber's eyes flashed. That proves a clerical omission, not deception. Verena looked at the glowing throat grooves. Then write the omission before you name it innocent. Marrowlight lowered his head until the 2 bright grooves aligned with the blank certificate lines. The red-white light crossed from body to parchment, like heat crossing old glass. The fresh mountain capture seal flickered. Lucan watched the certificate change under his own flame-lit shadow. He had burned the book to keep the exchange clean. Now the first clean paper in his hand was answering dirt. Read the certificate contradiction, he ordered. Tiber's voice sharpened. Majesty, this is procedurally premature. Lucan did not look at him. So was burning her record. The words reached Verena before she could harden against them. Not repair. Not enough. But the first public cost. The scribe lowered his head over the darkened lines. Certificate contradiction. The fresh mountain capture certificate omitted Marrowlight's prior chain scars. Tiber Vossen did not deny that the fresh mountain capture certificate had omitted Marrowlight's prior chain scars. He denied that false scale dye had been applied before scar inspection was completed. The certificate contradiction lay beneath the Redscale flame, its 2 darkened blanks staring up from the parchment. Crescent hind scar, omitted. Throat chain grooves, omitted. Marrowlight stood in the auction circle with the polish breaking across his flank, every crack showing the red-white glow of a wound the exchange had tried to make presentable. Verena Hollis did not move toward the dragon. The scars had already answered enough. Now the paper had to. Tiber lifted both gloved hands slightly, as if calming frightened guests at a dinner. Polish review is cosmetic preparation, Majesty. It does not alter legal identity. Verena looked at the bright crescent under the false shine. Ask who made the wound presentable before it was readable. Dragon King Lucan Aereth kept the burned register cover at his side. Ash still clung to the gold of his fingers. He had not offered it back. Good. A burned cover was not repair. He turned to the auction scribe. When was full-scale dye applied? The scribe opened the display preparation ledger. Second bell before bidding, Majesty. Was scar inspection completed before polish? The scribe's eyes lowered. No, Majesty. A hard silence moved through the buyer rail. Tiber's voice stayed even. Display work can occur before final inspection. High-value lots require visual stabilization. A frightened dragon with exposed old wounds can unsettle buyers and other stock. Verena's mouth tightened. Ask whether polish can be cosmetic when it covers identity. Lucan repeated it. Can polish be considered cosmetic if it covers an identity mark? The scribe hesitated. Tiber turned to the court before the answer could form. False polish hides damage, not history. The exchange prepares bodies for safe viewing, not deception. Then why did the safe viewing begin before the truth was checked? Verena asked. Several buyers looked away. Marrowlight's throat grooves burned brighter. Not toward Verena, toward the display preparation ledger. Evidence following sequence. Lucan saw it. Who approved display preparation before identity review? The scribe glanced toward the auction offices. Approval entered under exchange preparation authority. Tiber inclined his head. Standard authority, Majesty. No special instruction. Did polish cover the crescent hind scar? Lucan asked. The scribe turned a page. The lot was marked full flank stabilization. That is not an answer. No, the scribe said softly. Yes, Majesty. The polish covered the crescent hind scar. Verena looked at the dragon's neck. Ask whether beauty was applied before truth was checked. Lucan's jaw tightened. Did polish cover the throat grooves? The scribe swallowed. Yes, Majesty. Neck smoothing and cord presentation were completed before scar inspection. Tiber's smile thinned. Cord presentation is required for dragon safety. The gold cord prevented wing panic. Marrowlight gave a low, broken sound. The snapped cord at his wings blackened where the earlier scarlight had burned through. Verena's voice went cold. A dragon becomes fresh very easily when old pain is painted over and tied down. Lucan looked at the scribe. Was Marrowlight certified from Living Scar Review or Polished Appearance? The scribe's fingers shook on the ledger. The preliminary certificate used Polished Appearance. The yard seemed to tilt around that answer. Tiber stepped in quickly. Preliminary, not final. Scar inspection can happen after display preparation. No proof shows dye was applied to conceal prior sale. Verena looked at him. Ask who needed the scar hidden before the certificate stayed clean. Tiber's gaze sharpened. Mistress Hollis continues to assign motive where procedure explains enough. Procedure, she said, is the soft word men use when cruelty learned to write neatly. Lucan looked at her. The words struck him, not because they were meant to wound, because he was beginning to understand that his court had wounded in his language. He faced the scribe. Could the buyer see the chain scars before bidding? No, maestu. Could the buyer see the crescent hind scar? No. Could the buyer know from the certificate that prior restraint marks existed? No. Tiber's hand tightened once around his glove cuff. The buyer could request further inspection after purchase. Verena almost laughed. After purchase, after the new name, after the old history was paid to stay quiet. The false polish along Marrowlight's flank began to blister, not with heat from Verena, not with obedience to anyone, but because the living scar beneath it had been entered in breath, scale dust, and witness ink. The red-white light pushed through the dye in thin veins. The display ledger rustled. Ash from the burned cover lifted and crossed the page, settling over 2 time marks. Second bell, full flank stabilization. Third bell, scar inspection incomplete. The auction scribe whispered, "The polish record is answering the scar sequence." Lucan's face darkened. Was polish used to prepare the lot, or to silence the wound? Tiber's voice sharpened for the first time. Majesty, that phrasing is inflammatory. Verena looked at Lucan. So was calling memory defamation. The words landed between them. He did not apologize. He did not reach for her. He did the only thing still useful. He pointed to the ledger. Read the polish review note. Tiber stepped forward. The exchange cannot let damaged animals dictate record language. Marrowlight's crescent scar flared once. The scribe lowered his head. Polish review note. Full-scale dye was applied before Marrowlight's scar inspection was completed. Tiber Vossen did not deny that false-scale dye had been applied before Marrowlight's scar inspection was completed. He denied that the living scar entry review had been skipped. The polish review note lay open beside the display preparation ledger, its ink dark beneath the Redscale flame. False-scale dye was applied before Marrowlight's scar inspection was completed. In the auction circle, Marrowlight stood with polish blistering along his flank, and the old crescent scar glowing through like a truth that had waited under paint. Dragon King Lucan Aereth still held the burned cover of the living scar register. Verena Hollis looked at it once. Only once. The cover was proof of what he had destroyed, not proof that he understood it. Tiber stepped toward the buyer rail with measured calm. Living scar entry review is required only when a prior record is submitted, Majesty. Mistress Hollis's register was burned, and therefore unavailable. Verena's eyes did not leave Marrowlight. Ask whether burning the paper made the body unreadable. Lucan looked at her. There was shame in his face now. Good. Shame could stand where pride had been, but it could not speak for her. He turned to the auction scribe. Was living scar entry review required for marked restraint damage? The scribe opened the identity review ledger. Yes, Majesty. If restraint damage appears before certification, living scar entry review must be completed before display preparation. Tiber lifted one hand. If restraint damage appears, display preparation does not require full identity review. Preliminary certificates are allowed before final review. Verena's mouth tightened. Ask why the exchange polished first and searched later. Lucan repeated it. Why was Marrowlight polished before any search for a living scar entry? The scribe glanced toward Tiber, then down again. The lot was moved to display preparation under preliminary sales status. Was Marrowlight checked against any scar entry index before display preparation? Lucan asked. No, Majesty. The answer moved through the yard like cold wind under a door. Tiber's voice stayed smooth. Old scars may be cosmetic unless an ownership claim exists. The exchange cannot halt every lot for a scar memory reaction. Marrowlight's throat grooves brightened. Not toward Verena. Toward the identity review ledger. Evidence answering the skipped step. Verena looked at the scribe. Ask whether identity review waits until after a buyer pays. Lucan's jaw tightened. Did inspectors search for prior rescue names? The scribe turned a thin page. No rescue. Name search is marked before display preparation. Tiber smiled faintly. No rescue. Name claim had been filed in surviving paper. Verena looked at Lucan's burned cover. Ask whether your fire destroyed evidence or only gave them permission to skip it. The words reached him like a blade drawn slowly. He did not defend himself. That was the only useful response available. Was the burned register the only copy? Lucan asked. Or only the public copy? A silence followed. Tiber's gaze sharpened, but he did not interrupt. The scribe swallowed. The living scar register's paper volume was the public copy. The living entries remain indexed in scar memory if properly called through breath, scale, dust, and witness ink. Several buyers turned toward the glowing dragon as if seeing him for the first time as more than stock. Verena stepped closer to the circle, stopping before the handler's line. Ask who benefits when the living entry is treated as unavailable. Tiber's voice cooled. Mistress Hollis continues to turn administrative sequence into moral accusation. No, Verena said. I am turning a dragon's body back into a record after your office sold it as an empty surface. Lucan looked at the identity review ledger. Did display preparation replace identity review? The scribe's fingers trembled. The record says identity review pending. Was display preparation completed while that review was pending? Yes, Majesty. Was the lot certified from living scars or from polished appearance? The scribe's face drained of color. From polished appearance. Tiber stepped in quickly. Pending does not mean skipped. It means not yet completed. The exchange moves hundreds of lots through staged process. Verena's eyes stayed cold. A staged process that can sell a dragon before anyone asks who he was. The Redscale flame bent toward Marrowlight. Ash from the burned register cover lifted again, but it did not rebuild the pages. It drifted over the identity review ledger and settled on the blank line marked Living Scar Entry Reviewed. The blank line darkened. Living Scar Entry Review, not completed. Display preparation, completed before review. Marrowlight's crescent scar pulsed once, in the same rhythm as the darkened line. Not obedience. Not rescue. A recorded wound answering a missing review. Lucan stared at the ledger until the flame reflected in his eyes. Who decided a burned paper made the living entry irrelevant? Tiber's expression hardened, but his voice remained disciplined. No one decided that, Majesty. The record shows sequence, not intent. Verena looked at him. Then write the sequence before you clean it. The buyer rail had gone silent now. No one clicked a ring against a paddle. No one laughed. The first lot had stopped being a creature for sale and become a question the exchange could no longer price. Lucan turned to the scribe. Can the record prove intent? No, Majesty. Can it prove the living scar entry was not reviewed before display preparation? Yes, Majesty. Then read what it can prove. Tiber stepped half a pace forward. Majesty, this undermines every preliminary certificate in the yard. Lucan looked at the polished rows of chained dragons waiting beyond the gate. His face changed. Not apology, not repair. The first understanding that the fire he used on Verena's register had not protected confidence. It had protected blindness. He pointed to the darkened ledger line. Read it. The scribe lowered his head, while Marrowlight's scars held their red-white light steady. Identity review omission. Marrowlight's living scar entry was not reviewed before display preparation. Tiber Vossen did not deny that Marrowlight's living scar entry had not been reviewed before display preparation. He denied that his office had avoided Verena Hollis's scar index before certification. The identity review omission sat open beside the display ledger, and for the first time that morning, the Redscale Royal Exchange looked less like a palace of lawful trade and more like a room full of polished cages. Marrowlight stood in the center of it, old scars glowing through ruined dye while rich buyers held their paddles close to their chests. No one bid. That silence was not mercy. It was fear of buying a question. Tiber Vossen's voice returned smooth and controlled. Mistress Hollis's register was unavailable, Majesty. Your fire made that plain. My office cannot request a burned book. Verena looked at Lucan Aereth. Not for comfort, for consequence. Ask whether they failed to find the record, she said, or chose not to ask the woman who kept it. Lucan's face tightened. He turned to the auction scribe. Before certifying Marrowlight, did Tiber Vossen's office request Verena Hollis's scar index? The scribe opened the exchange access ledger. Tiber's smile remained steady. The office requested standard rescue archives, not private obsession. Verena did not flinch. A dragon's scars were official enough when you priced them as defects. They became private when they named him. The buyer rail shifted uneasily. Lucan did not look away from the ledger. Answer. The scribe swallowed. No, Majesty. No request was made to Mistress Hollis before certification. The words landed cleanly. Not proof of all crimes. Enough to open the next door. Tiber lifted one hand. Her index was not part of mandatory sale procedure unless a prior ownership claim had been filed. Was marked restraint damage enough to trigger scar index access? Lucan asked. The scribe looked at Marrowlight's throat grooves. Yes, Majesty, if visible or suspected. Tiber answered before the silence could deepen. The damage was not visible before the Scarlight event. Verena's mouth tightened. Because the body was polished before the review. Marrowlight's crescent scar pulsed once. Not toward her, toward the access ledger. Evidence following the question. Lucan saw it. Did inspectors search any prior rescue name before issuing the fresh capture certificate? No, Majesty. Did they search Marrowlight? No, Majesty. Did they search by scar pattern? The scribe's voice fell. No. Tiber's tone sharpened only at the edge. Scar pattern search requires an active index. The living scar register was not submitted to my office for that purpose. Verena looked at him. You brought it to the judgment stand to burn. Do not pretend you could not find it. That struck the yard harder than anger would have. Lucan's grip tightened around the blackened cover. His fire had not made the register unavailable to Tiber. It had made the court free to ignore it. Was Verena's register in the exchange office before I burned it? Lucan asked. The scribe's face went pale. Yes, Majesty. Submitted under protest review. Tiber inclined his head. For review of defamatory content, not certification. Verena's eyes stayed cold. Ask who decided truth was readable for punishment but unavailable for protection. For a moment, Lucan looked at her, as he once had in the rescue pens, when she had stood in rain with dragon blood on her sleeves and refused to leave a burned hatchling until dawn. Back then, he had admired the stubborn mercy in her hands. Today, he had made that mercy stand trial. He did not ask for forgiveness. Good. He asked the next question. Who controlled access to the register during protest review? The scribe turned a page slowly. Auction Regent Tiber Vossen's office. The first real crack crossed Tiber's court face. Small, gone quickly, but Verena saw it. So did Lucan. Tiber spoke with careful patience. Access control does not imply misuse. A protest document must be held securely before judgment. Verena looked at the chained dragon. Ask who renamed him while his scars still knew Marrowlight. Lucan turned back to the scribe. Under what sale name was this lot entered? The scribe read the certificate margin. Lot 7 Redmount Juvenile. Marrowlight's throat grooves flared. The burned cover cracked again. Ash lifted from the spine and drifted toward the access ledger. It did not rebuild the living scar register. It did not restore Verena's pages. It settled instead on 3 blank columns. Scar index requested. No. Prior rescue name search. No. Sale name assigned. Lot 7 Redmount Juvenile. The red-white light from Marrowlight's body crossed those words like a wound refusing its new label. Tiber's voice stayed controlled, but lower. Temporary lot names are common before final purchase. They are not identity theft. Verena looked at him. No, but a temporary name becomes a theft when the real one is locked in the office you control. The buyers were listening differently now, not with sympathy, with self-protection. Some of them began looking toward the rows of chained dragons behind the gates. Lucan noticed. His expression darkened. Can the record prove that Tiber's office failed to request Verena Hollis's scar index before certifying Marrowlight? He asked. Yes, Majesty, the scribe said. Can it prove why? No, Majesty. Not yet. Then we enter what it can prove. Tiber stepped forward. Majesty, this risks suggesting administrative malice without full evidence. Verena looked at Lucan before he could answer. Write the absence first. Malice always hides behind the space men call not yet. Lucan absorbed the line without trying to soften it. Then he looked at the access ledger. Read the scar index access note. The scribe lowered his head while Marrowlight's scars held steady against the false name printed on his certificate. Scar index access note. Tiber Vossen's office did not request Verena Hollis's scar index before certifying Marrowlight. Tiber Vossen did not deny that his office had failed to request Verena Hollis's scar index before certifying Marrowlight. He denied that the new sale name had erased the dragon's identity. The scar index access note sat beneath the Redscale flame, and the words had changed the sound of the auction yard. No one spoke as if the first lot were only an animal now. Marrowlight stood in the circle with ruined polish hanging from his flank in pale flakes, the crescent hind scar still glowing through the damage like a name refusing burial. Tiber folded his gloved hands. Temporary lot names are ordinary, Majesty. Every dragon enters the exchange under sale classification before final purchase. Verena looked at the certificate. Ask whether ordinary names are still ordinary when the old one was never searched. Lucan Aereth's eyes moved to her. She did not let the look become comfort. He turned to the auction scribe. When was Lot 7 Redmount Juvenile assigned? The scribe opened the sale name ledger. First bell before bidding, Majesty. Before scar. Index access. Yes, Majesty. Before rescue. Name search. Yes. Tiber's expression remained calm. A provisional name does not replace identity. It permits inventory movement. Verena's voice sharpened. Inventory is what you call a living creature when you need its past to stop breathing. Marrowlight lowered his head. The throat grooves pulsed once. Not toward Verena. Toward the sale name ledger. Evidence following the replacement. Lucan's hand tightened around the burned register cover. Was Marrowlight's prior rescue name listed anywhere on the certificate? No, Majesty. Was it listed in the sale name ledger? No. Was any note entered that a living scar entry might answer another name? The scribe's lips parted, then closed. No, Majesty. Tiber stepped nearer the judgment stand. Majesty, a prior rescue name has no standing unless formally attached to ownership claim. Without a surviving paper entry, it is sentiment. Verena looked at him. You keep trying to make memory sound feminine so men can dismiss it. The buyer rail went very still. Lucan heard it. Good. Let him hear how many times his court had used that trick in softer language. Tiber's smile cooled. I make trade stable, Mistress Hollis. Without order, every handler's pet name could overturn royal sale. A pet name does not carry chain grooves, she said. A pet name does not answer witness ink. The Redscale flame bent toward the ledger. Ash lifted from the burned cover and settled over the sale name column. It did not restore the living scar register. It only darkened the space where a prior identity check should have appeared. Prior rescue name checked. No. Living scar entry cross-reference. No. Sale name assigned. Lot 7 Redmount Juvenile. Marrowlight's crescent scar flared once in the same rhythm. The scribe whispered, "The sale name record is answering the omission." Tiber's voice hardened by a degree. The animal's reaction cannot be allowed to rewrite inventory practice. Verena turned to him. No, it is rewriting the lie that inventory practice was harmless. Lucan looked toward the rows of dragons waiting behind the far gates. Dozens of chains glittered beneath blue fire lamps. Some dragons had polished scales too smooth to be natural. Some held their wings too still. For the first time, the Dragon King looked at the exchange as if he had never truly seen it. Verena hated that she noticed. She hated more that some wounded part of her had waited years for him to look. Can the record prove the sale name was assigned before prior rescue? Name search, Lucan asked. Yes, Majesty. Can it prove Marrowlight was entered under a new sale name while his living scar entry remained unchecked? Yes. Tiber spoke quickly. That proves sequence only. Not theft, not trafficking, not noble guilt. Verena met his eyes. Sequence is where theft learns to dress itself. Lucan turned to the scribe. Enter it. The scribe reached for his pen. Then Marrowlight stumbled. Not from attack. From exhaustion. His bound body sagged against the auction chain, throat grooves flickering as if the old restraint marks had been forced to speak too long. Verena moved before anyone ordered her. 2 handlers stepped to block her. Lucan's voice cracked across the yard. Let her pass. The handlers moved aside. Verena reached Marrowlight and placed one hand above the glowing crescent without touching the wound. Easy, she whispered. No one gets to rename you while you are still breathing. Lucan came one step closer. Verena, let me put guards with you. She looked back at him. Do not call protection the thing you offer after making me unsafe. The words hit him in full view of the court. He stopped. Good. She unpinned the Redscale Keeper tag from her dress. The small brass emblem had once given her access to rescue stalls, scar ink, and every injured dragon the exchange wanted healed before sale. She placed it on the stone between them. Lucan's face went still. What are you doing? Leaving your authority before it decides again which part of my work is useful and which part is defamation. Tiber's eyes brightened with careful opportunity. Majesty, if Mistress Hollis abandons her keeper post, she cannot supervise further animal handling. Verena looked at the rows of chained dragons. I am not abandoning them. I am refusing to serve the exchange that sells them clean after making them unreadable. Marrowlight's scarlight lowered, steadier now. Lucan did not pick up the keeper tag. He looked at it like it weighed more than his crown. The scribe's pen touched the page. Sale name record. Marrowlight was entered as Lot 7 Redmount Juvenile before his prior rescue name or living scar entry was checked. The keeper tag lay on the red stone between Verena Hollis and Dragon King Lucan Aereth. It looked small there. That made it worse. For years, that brass emblem had opened sick pens, ash stalls, quarantine doors, and bleeding cages. It had let Verena reach dragons the exchange wanted healed before buyers saw the cost of owning them badly. Now it lay at Lucan's feet because his court had used her access, then burned her truth. Tiber Vossen looked at the tag with quiet calculation. Majesty, without official keeper authority, Mistress Hollis cannot handle lots, access ledgers, or interfere with certified sale order. Verena did not look at him. Interfere is what men call it when a woman reaches the wound before the buyer. A few handlers lowered their eyes. Lucan heard it. He also saw the tag. For once, he did not bend to pick it up and offer it back like a favor. Good. She would not take dignity returned in the same hand that had burned it. He turned to the scribe. Under Redscale law, who controls Scar Review? The scribe swallowed. The exchange office, Majesty, through the auction regent. Tiber inclined his head. To preserve orderly sale. Verena looked toward the chained rows beyond the gate. Orderly for whom? No one answered. Marolite's throat grooves glowed low, steady now, no longer flaring in panic. The sale name record remained open. Marolite entered as Lot 7 Redmount Juvenile before his prior rescue name or living scar entry was checked. Lucan stared at that line. Then he looked at Verena. Not with the old private admiration, with public consequence. You are right not to serve this office, he said. The words reached her before she could stop them. She hardened against them anyway. Do not make my refusal another useful thing, she said. Pain crossed his face. He accepted it. Tiber stepped closer. Majesty, removing Scar Review from the exchange during annual bidding will collapse buyer confidence. Lucan's voice was quiet. Buyer confidence is what I burned her register to protect. The yard went still. Verena's breath caught once. Not forgiveness. Recognition of cost. Tiber's tone sharpened beneath the polish. And will your Majesty now announce that royal confidence was misplaced? Lucan looked at the nobles behind their paddles. Yes. The word moved through the auction yard like a blade drawn from a velvet sheath. A buyer near the front said, Majesty, my house will not bid under unstable review. Then your house will not bid, Lucan said. Tiber's smile disappeared for half a heartbeat. Verena watched Lucan, hating that her heart still knew the shape of courage when it came late. He turned to the council scribe. Enter a royal review order. No lot leaves the Redscale Royal Exchange until living scar. Entry review is completed independent of the auction regent's office. Tiber stepped forward. Independent review requires an appointed authority. Lucan looked at Verena. She raised one hand before he could speak her name like a reward. No, she said. If you appoint me to serve under the exchange again, I refuse. Lucan stopped. The old Lucan would have commanded. This one listened. Then not under the exchange, he said. Not under Tiber. Not under me in private. The last word struck them both. Private. The place where his admiration had stayed safe while her work burned in public. He faced the scribe. The Scar Review Authority will stand as crown, witness office, answerable to public record. Verena Hollis may accept or refuse command of it. If she refuses, no one else may use her burned index without her permission. Tiber's voice cooled. You would give one woman power to halt the royal market. Verena looked at him. No, he is giving the dragons the power your market stole from their bodies. Marolite's crescent scar brightened once. Not toward her, toward the open ledgers. Evidence approving access, not worshipping a keeper. The scribe lowered his pen. Majesty, opening all lot ledgers may reveal noble purchase histories. Lucan's jaw tightened. Then right slowly. A hard murmur moved through the buyers. One noblewoman lifted her paddle halfway, then lowered it. My house demands withdrawal before public review. Tiber seized the moment. You see, Majesty, the exchange cannot survive mass withdrawal. Verena's voice came calm and tired. Maybe an exchange that survives only when records stay closed is not trade. It is laundering. The word hit the yard harder than accusation because everyone understood money. Lucan turned toward the chained rows. Open the lot ledgers. The scribe hesitated. Lucan's royal flame rose at his wrists, not toward Verena, not toward the dragons, but around the locked ledger chest beside the auction stand. The seals melted without burning the pages. One by one, ledgers opened under red gold light. Lot names, certificates, Polish notes, inspection holds. No full chain yet. Only doors unlocked. Tiber's composure thinned. Majesty, If you open those books, every house here will ask whether your throne profits from stolen stock." Lucan looked at the burnt cover in his hand. Then he placed it on the stone beside Verena's keeper tag. "The throne already profited from her silence," he said. "Now it will pay to read." Verena looked at the two objects on the ground, the tag she had surrendered and the cover he could not return whole. For the first time, he had placed his damage beside hers instead of asking her to carry it. Not enough, but repair had finally become action. The scribe dipped his pen as Marolite's scars held steady before the opened ledgers. Royal Review Order. Lucan Aereth removed Scar Review from the auction regent's control and opened Redscale lot ledgers before any further sale could proceed. Tiber Vossen did not deny that Lucan Aereth had removed Scar Review from the auction regent's control. He denied that Verena Hollis could lawfully open royal enclosures before sale. The opened lot ledgers spread across the judgment stand under red gold flame, their pages showing names, polish notes, inspection holds, and gaps where living Scar entries should have been called before bidding. Verena's keeper tag and the burned register cover lay together on the stone, two small things that had carried too much harm. Tiber faced the buyers with controlled dignity. "Majesty, independent review does not authorize unrestricted enclosure release. These dragons are valuable, frightened, and legally held." Verena looked toward the rows of chained bodies behind the gates. "Legally held is not the same as lawfully known." A low murmur moved through the yard. Lucan turned to her. "What do you need?" She heard the old instinct in his voice, command offered as protection, power trying to make itself useful. She did not step into it. "Not need," she said. "Authority, in public, under record, and not as your keeper." His face tightened once. Then he nodded. Tiber's eyes narrowed. "Authority to do what?" Verena looked at the first row of enclosures. Some dragons watched her through polished bars. Others kept their heads lowered, wings bound, throats marked by ceremonial cords meant to make suffering look expensive. To let them answer, without sale names in their mouths. Tiber's voice cooled. "A dragon cannot testify to legal ownership." "No," Verena said, "but a living scar, entry, can identify former handlers, homes, and recorded wound sequence. That is not testimony. That is indexed memory." Marolite's crescent scar glowed once, steady and low. Not toward her, toward the enclosure gates. Lucan saw it. So did the buyers. He faced the scribe. "Under crown, witness review. Can living scar entries identify prior handling before sale?" The scribe swallowed. "Yes, Majesty. If called by breath, scale, dust, and witness ink before public record." Tiber stepped forward. Inside controlled stalls, not in open exchange yard, releasing multiple lots risks panic, injury, and market collapse. Verena's mouth hardened. "Market collapse keeps frightening you more than a dragon sold under a false name." Lucan looked at her. "If the enclosure's open, I will place guards around you." "No," she said. The words struck him in front of everyone. She stepped closer, stopping beside the burned cover. "Do not stand in front of me and call it repair. Stand behind the order you signed." Pain moved through his face. He accepted it. "Good." He turned to the royal guard. "Open the outer safety ring. No blade drawn unless a dragon attacks first. No handler touches a scar, cord, horn, or wing without Verena Hollis's recorded instruction." Tiber's polished calm thinned. "Majesty, you are surrendering royal control of the yard." Lucan looked at the chained rows. "No, I am admitting royal control already failed them." The words reached Verena before she could harden completely. Not forgiveness, but cost. She bent and picked up the burned register cover. The leather was split, its brass clasps warped by royal fire. She did not hold it like something sacred. She held it like evidence that had survived badly enough to keep speaking. "Bring witness ink," she said. The scribe hurried to obey. Tiber's voice cut in. "Her register is destroyed. She cannot reconstruct entries by instinct." Verena looked at him. "I am not reconstructing by instinct. The marks were entered in breath and scale, dust before your office decided paper was the only witness worth burning. She touched the burned cover to the ink dish. Ash loosened from the spine. Not page. Not restoration. Only enough index dust to call what remained alive in scar memory. The first enclosure gate opened. A copper-black dragon stepped forward, trembling under a sail cord. Its left wing had been polished smooth, too smooth. Verena did not move toward its face. She looked at the wing root. "Call entry by mark," she said. The scribe repeated, voice shaking. "Call entry by mark." The dragon exhaled once across the witness ink. Red-white lines lifted under the polish. 3 small brand cuts in a triangle, then a healed tear along the wing joint. The lines did not point to Verena. They crossed the ledger and formed 2 entries. Former Handler, East Kiln, Master Door. Home mark, Black Fen Salt Road. A woman near the back sobbed once into her glove. Tiber turned sharply. Unverified emotional display. Verena did not look at him. Write it as unverified if you must, but write it before anyone pays to rename him. The second enclosure opened, then the third. One by one, dragons breathed across witness ink. Scar entries rose from bodies Tiber's office had polished into silence. A tail notch matching a quarry brand, a throat hook scar tied to a missing coastal stable, a wing burn that named a handler supposedly dead, a horn split recorded under a river monastery that had filed theft claims for years. The yard changed, not into chaos, into memory with teeth. Buyers began lowering paddles. Handlers began stepping back. Lucan stood behind the order he had signed, not beside Verena, not touching her, not asking her to see him differently. That restraint hurt more than pride had. Tiber's voice sharpened. "This is not review. This is incitement." Verena turned to him. "No. Incitement is selling a creature after teaching its scars to stay quiet." A final enclosure at the end of the row shuddered. The dragon inside was old, dark bronze, with one clouded eye and a chest scar hidden under layers of black scale dye. Lucan went still. Verena saw it. So did Tiber. The old dragon exhaled over the witness ink. A scar shaped like a broken royal flame lit across its chest. Lucan's face lost all color. He whispered one name like it had been buried in him for years. Ashwarden. The scribe's pen trembled above the page. Enclosure witness order. Verena Hollis opened the Redscale enclosures and allowed living scar entries to identify former handlers and homes. The old bronze dragon had been dead for 9 years. That was what Lucan Aereth had believed. Ashwarden had fallen during the Black Ember siege, shielding the young Dragon King from a collapsing tower and a traitor's spear. Lucan had buried an empty war collar beneath the royal fire shrine because no body had been recovered, only burned chain and one broken scale. Now the dragon stood in the last Redscale enclosure with black dye cracking over his chest and a scar shaped like a broken royal flame burning through the paint. Verena Hollis did not look at Lucan first. She looked at the scar. "Call the entry by mark," she said. The scribe's voice trembled. "Call entry by mark." Ashwarden exhaled across the witness ink. The red-white light widened. Lines spread from his chest scar to the opened ledgers, crossing sale names, polish notes, buyer seals, handler marks, and transport certificates. The glowing path did not turn toward Verena. It did not kneel to Lucan's grief. It answered recorded injury. Tiber Vosen stepped forward. "Majesty, war dragons acquire many flame scars. Sentiment cannot override identification." Lucan's face was pale, but his voice held. "Then we will not use sentiment." Verena looked at him once. Good. He had learned at least that much. She faced the scribe. "Read the scar sequence." The scribe bent over the ledgers. Original identity. Ashwarden, Royal Guard Dragon, listed dead after Black Ember siege. War collar marked destroyed. Lucan's hand closed at his side. Verena saw the pain. She did not step toward it. "Continue," she said. The scribe swallowed. "Transferred under salvage claim to Vossen Holding Yard." Renamed Bronze Lot 6. Sold to North Cairns Stables. Returned, injured, repolished. Renamed Emberback. Sold to House Del Morn. Returned with wing damage. Renamed Old Copper. Entered today as retired breeding stock. The auction yard lost its breath. Tiber's expression remained controlled by force alone. Salvage claims after war are legal. Verena's voice was quiet. Not when the dead dragon is alive. Ashwarden lowered his scarred head. Lucan took one step toward the enclosure. The dragon did not move to him. The distance stayed. That hurt him more visibly than accusation. Good. A creature did not owe comfort to the king who had let his body be traded through offices. Tiber turned to the buyers. This is one disputed war entry. It does not implicate the exchange. Then every dragon in the yard lit up. One scar first, then 10, then dozens. Red-white lines burned through false polish, ceremonial dye, polished horn resin, and sail cord shadow. Flank scars, throat grooves, tail notches, wing tears, brand cuts, healed hook marks. The Redscale Royal Exchange became a field of living entries answering from bodies no certificate had bothered to read. Not attack, not rescue. Identity records coming due. The opened ledgers shuddered as scarlight crossed them in chains of sequence. Formahinla. Home road. First sale. Return. Rename. Second buyer. Polish review. Certificate omission. Resale. Tiber's office seal appeared again and again beside access holds and name changes. The buyers began stepping back. Verena lifted her voice. No one leaves the yard until every lit scar is entered. Tiber's mask cracked. You have no authority to detain noble houses. Lucan turned to the royal guard. I do. He faced the entire exchange, then the nobles, handlers, scribes, inspectors, chained dragons, and the woman whose work he had burned because truth had threatened confidence. I burned Verena Hollis's living scar register before public review, he said. I chose market confidence over recorded identity. I let auction regent Tiber Vossen call protection work defamation because it was easier to preserve trade than face what trade had become. The words cut through the yard. Verena's throat tightened. Not forgiveness. The sound of truth finally standing where fire had stood. Lucan continued. Every certificate connected to an ignited scar is suspended. Every sale is halted. Every buyer, seal, handler mark, and noble transfer connected to these chains will be read under Crown Witness record. Tiber's voice sharpened. Majesty, this will ruin the exchange. Lucan looked at him. No, it will tell us what the exchange was built to ruin. He turned to the guards. Auction regent Tiber Vossen is removed from authority over scar review, sale certification, and enclosure custody pending trafficking judgment. Tiber's eyes flashed. You would condemn me on animal light and a woman's burned book? Verena stepped between the ledgers and the enclosures. No, on the chain you kept renaming until every wound learned your handwriting. Ashwarden's broken royal flame scar flared once. The ledgers answered. Vossen holding yard. Vossen certification office. Vossen polish approval. Vossen resale authority. The final seal burned red beneath Tiber's own signature. Silence fell cleanly. Tiber did not confess. He did not need to. The record had done what confession would have tried to soften. Lucan looked at Verena. The Crown Witness office is yours if you want it. Independent funding, public ledgers, no auction regent above you, no royal fire over your records without your consent. Verena held the burned register cover. And if I do not want to repair your exchange? His face tightened with pain he did not ask her to soothe. Then I will dismantle enough of it that no one can use your absence as permission. That was repair. Not romance. Not yet. But something real enough to stand on. Verena turned to the opened enclosures. The dragons go home where homes remain. Where homes were destroyed, they choose sanctuary. Their scars decide identity review before any owner claims them. The scribe wrote it. Lucan bowed his head. So ordered. Later, After Tiber was taken from the yard and noble buyers were held beside their own ledgers, Lucan found Verena near Ashwarden's enclosure. He stopped several steps away. "I thought he died saving me," he said. Verena looked at the old dragon. "He survived saving you. There is a difference." Lucan absorbed that like a sentence. Then he said, "I burned memory the moment it endangered my court." "Yes," she said. "I will spend the rest of my reign making sure no one has to trust my regret." Her eyes moved to him then. The man before her was still the king who had failed her, but he was also the man finally willing to let truth cost him more than pride. "I will not come back as your keeper," she said. "I know. I will lead the Scar office if it belongs to the record, not to you. It will. And you will stand across the table, not above it." Lucan's voice roughened. "Across from you, as long as you allow." Verena looked at the scarlet yard, at the dragons whose bodies had remembered themselves when power tried to sell them clean. Then she looked back at him. "For now," she said, "truth gets the first claim." The final Redscale record dried beneath living scarlight. Redscale public reversal. The living scar register's scar patterns reconstructed Tiber Vossen's ownership chain, halted the Royal Exchange, restored dragon identities, and gave Verena Hollis the right to choose truth before love.